Hello one and all, it's my review of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, Chapter 91, Plan B. And while I usually like to do these videos in order, I just absolutely freaking had to start this review talking about the last page. Mirko pops out saying, he says, call you know who. Call number 1, we need All Might. They are bringing in All Might to Vigilantes, and not this withered husk of an old man that we've come to know and love in the main series. The true All Might, the All Might in his prime, the All Might with no limits. I mean, in his first battle against Nomu, All Might said, in the past, it would have taken me 1 blow to knock you out. Now it took me 50. That means that the All Might we are going to see in the next chapter is approximately 50 times stronger than that. 50 times stronger than the man who changed the weather with a punch. Oh, I can't freaking wait for that. That's gonna be an amazing Christmas present, since the chapter is coming out on Christmas. Though I guess there's also the possibility that we won't actually see All Might do all that much fighting in the next chapter. I mean, we know that Hood can't be captured because he has to end up, fighting Endeavor 6 years down the road. And while the big battle between All for One and All Might won't happen for another 4 or 5 years based on the current timeline, that doesn't mean there's no possibility that next chapter we might actually end up seeing All for One fighting All Might. Obviously a much, much smaller scale battle than the one that ends up destroying both their bodies, but it could definitely happen. That would be so freaking amazing. Seriously, imagine if Vigilantes actually had All Might versus All for One. Oh, I love that. Though this chapter also does a very interesting job of showing what All Might's role in Hero Society really was. Because O'Clock says, when up against an unknown threat, we play our ultimate card. He's not saying that's what we should do. He's not saying that's what I do. He's saying that's what we, as Hero Society as a whole, do. Whenever there's an enemy that we don't understand, an enemy that we don't have the time to figure out, we call in All Might. That's what we do. That's just what we've always done since he showed up. All Might's not the tactical nuke you play at the last minute. He's basically the everything button. Whenever there's any situation they don't understand, they call in All Might just to be safe. And just, that really emphasizes what's his loss meant to Hero Society. They couldn't rely on him anymore. They couldn't, just call him up whenever there was a problem, whenever there was an issue that they didn't have the time to figure out. They had to start solving problems for themselves, and I really think that just shows the problem with All Might, with the symbol of peace. He was essentially the pillar that supported all of Hero Society, and without him, things go very bad, very, very fast. I don't know, I feel like by the time this series ends, Class 1A, or at the very least, Deku, Bako, and Shota are going to be viewed as like the 3 pillars of Hero Society, not like the ultimate trump cards, not like the single person that's keeping everything up and running, but 3 people who can solve any situation as long as they're there, the heroes that will always save the day. That way if anything happens to just one of them, Hero Society won't essentially collapse. Alright, on to the rest of the chapter. So yeah, Hood's quirk is fairly terrifying. He's not just expanding his arm, he's stretching out to the point where it's basically the arm of a freaking giant. I wasn't wrong about something in my last review. I said that the fact that O'Clock recognized that he had a healing effect meant that he must have fought the Nomu in the past. That was not the case. Instead, he's realizing that he's able to control and alter his body structure, and thus heal on the fly. Though it becomes very clear to him very quickly that his quirk doesn't actually match his fighting style. He has this whole martial arts vibe that's been basically drilled into his muscle memory, and his quirk, the expansion throws off his balance, throws off his center of gravity, and as a result there's a slight delay when he goes to throw a punch. That seems to imply that this wasn't the quirk he was born with, and rather this was the quirk that All for One gave him, but I don't know, I'm curious, maybe All for One just enhanced his quirk, maybe he could always, manipulate his arms, and All for One just gave him, some sort of pain nullifying quirk so that he wouldn't feel the agony of having his arm literally torn to pieces over and over again. Like he could always stretch out his arm, but if he did it too much, then, the feeling of his skin literally tearing off his body would hurt so badly that he'd basically black out, and All for One adjusted his body so that he's able to handle that pain better. That's at least my own interpretation of exactly how his quirk, his body was altered by All for One, because his face definitely doesn't look human, so there's definitely been some modifications going on to him. Curious about that? Anyway, like I said, a slight delay when he goes to throw a punch, which wouldn't mean too much for a regular fighter, but against O'Clock, who, can move super, super fast, it's more than enough for him to go in and manage to deal some pretty severe damage. And oh my freaking god, I just love this shot of him, using his speed to the absolute maximum as he's cutting this guy to freaking ribbons. And he doesn't actually seem all that bothered by being, like I said, cut to freaking ribbons, which does seem to imply that All for One may have taken away his ability to feel pain in order to get the most benefit out of his quirk. Curious about that? Anyway, so O'Clock can't actually keep this up for all that long. He can't actually beat him because he has to keep the gas mask on. But instead, he's using this as a distraction so that good old Mirko can escape and call for backup. And I just absolutely freaking love this shot of his hand. Stretched out to the maximum, the tendons, the muscles. He's literally stretched out as far as he can physically go. It looks so monstrous. I freaking love it. Anyway, then good old Rappa comes in and lends some support, helping Mirko escape. And again, I just really want these two to reunite in the main series. They become such good friends here. In such a short period of time, a reunion would be freaking amazing. Anyway, then Mirko escapes, and all the cops are in awe as she's shouting out, "Hey, call All Might! That's what the scruffy old man told me to tell you!" Quite frankly, I think Mirko might end up just running away at this point, doesn't want to get involved with any of this. So she's gonna run, right out of there and hope that nobody calls her school. And we do see a little bit more of Korgiri and All For One this chapter. All For One's so annoyed that they can't actually see the fight because all the cameras are taken out. So we recommend, maybe I should just kill everyone in here so they stop getting in the way and I can see this fight better. Oh, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. And Korgiri is interesting enough the voice of reason, which makes a lot of sense. He's always the voice of reason for Shigaraki. But I never thought All For One would be the impatient type, given that his plans sometimes take decades to bear fruit. Basically, he's worried, though, that All Might's going to show up and just ruin everything. And that really, really annoys him. He calls him his own personal bugbear, which is a term I have literally never heard in my entire life until this point. But, hey, I guess, All For One is 200-some years old. It makes sense he's going to use some pretty antiquated words. It is interesting, though, that was the one thing they were super worried about. Like, if All Might comes, it's going to ruin all our plans. And then at the end of the chapter, it's like, hey, we're calling All Might. Well, god dang it. I'm just very curious to see what ends up happening when All Might shows up. Like I said before, we can't capture Hood because Hood has to fight Endeavor. I don't know, I guess it could be the case where he captures Hood and then Korgiri teleports him out of police custody and manages to get him back to All For One. Though I guess if Korgiri could do that, he would have done that for, the other villains that were captured throughout the main series. Curious? I don't know, I'd really, really like to see, even with just a few blows back and forth, a battle between Prime All Might and All For One. I mean, their ultimate fight, their ultimate encounter that, left them both seriously injured, scarred, damaged for the rest of their lives. That's like the ultimate battle that's ever been hinted at this entire series. I just so want to see that. And while we probably aren't going to see that in Vigilantes or even the main series, just a little taste of that right here would be so freaking amazing. It'd be such a great Christmas present for all of us. But please, let me think all of it down below. Do you think they're going to escape before All Might shows up? Do you think there's going to be a battle? All Might versus Hood? All Might versus All For One? Oh, that'd be so freaking amazing. And what do you think about Hood's quirk? Do you think he originally had the arm enhancement and then was modified? Or his pain was nullified so that he could make more use of it? Or do you think he had a different quirk or no quirk at all and this one was just added on to him? I'm very curious about that. But leave it all down below. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video. Until then, peace!